What is going on, you guys? This week, my team and I did a lot of sales training. And we went through 5 sales tactics that really convert. And we know they convert because last week we locked up 3 deals using these tactics. And so I'm going to share them with you. And if that's helpful, you can use them to better help your prospects and convert more deals. Who am I? My name is Ryan Rice. I'm a full-time real estate investor. I share stuff that's worked with me or worked for me so that you can use it to make more money if that is a goal that you have. So these 5 tactics, I'm going to go through them quickly and then I'll kind of dive right in. So the first tactic is what I'm going to call when you say blank, what do you mean by that? The second is what I'm going to call impact questions. 3 is framing the offer in the right way, especially when the highest that you can go is your prospect's bottom line. 4 is having leverage and being okay not buying. And 5 is what I'm going to call taking your buying cap off. And we'll get into what I mean by that. These tactics are, I'm going to apply them very specifically to real estate. However, I do think that they can be applied to any business. And so if you are here and you don't have a real estate business, I do think that you'll get some value out of it, but I'm going to use them in very specific real estate examples. So first, let's start with the first 2 tactics, and they're intertwined, and that's why I'm going to go over them together. But the first was when you say blank, what do you mean by that? And the second is impact questions. So both of these tactics I learned from John Martinez. John Martinez has a really, really great real estate training out there. And honestly, it's great sales training in general. He did it a while back, it seems, and then I think he sold it to somebody new. Now I think he does commercial. I actually don't know what he does. But really, really good sales training if it's something that you want to look into. And I'm going to tell you, how we've recently applied these 2 things and what it is that they mean. So the quote, when you say blank, what does this mean? This simply helps you gain clarity on what the actual problem of your prospect is. And one of the most important things we can do as salespeople is to ensure that we're both speaking the same language. Because average salespeople, or maybe even below average salespeople, they'll hear the prospect say something. They'll assume that they know what the prospect means based on the salesperson's own definition of the words. And then the salesperson will communicate to the prospect as if that assumption is reality. And then they present a solution based off of that reality, only to find later that what the seller meant in the beginning was actually something entirely different. And so let's explore what that actually looks like using an example. And before we get into the example, because in the example, we're also going to cover the second tactic, real quick on the second tactic, it is asking impact questions. And basically what John Martinez says are impact questions, or what he says about them. Mediocre salespeople are really good at asking problem questions, identifying what the problem is, right? What has you thinking about selling? What's making you want to move? What are the issues with the house? They're good at identifying basic level information. Great salespeople, however, know how to go levels and layers and layers deeper. Right? They don't stop at understanding what the problem is. They ask question after question until they understand the impact of those problems. And by understanding what the impact is, then and only then is the prospect's true pain revealed. And what's great, many times you're helping sellers realize the impact of their problems for the first time. They may have not thought through all of them. And this can create the urgency that's needed to take action and actually get their problem solved. So let's examine both of these tactics in an example. Let's say a seller calls and they have a house to sell. And you ask them, well, what has you thinking about selling? And they say, well, I just need to get into a smaller house. And so here you've identified a problem. They want to downsize. But you have no idea why they want to downsize. All right? Can they not walk up the stairs? Did their kids move out? Can they not keep up with such a big house and a yard? And so now this first tactic comes into play. And you can say, well, when you say you need to get into a smaller house, what do you mean by that? And they might say, well, it's just too much house. I really can't keep up with it anymore. I'd like to move into an apartment. And so you go again. Got it. And when you say it's just too much house, what exactly do you mean by that? And they explain, well, I just got divorced. The wife took the kids. And, it's 2,400 square feet. It's just too much for me to keep up with on my own. And so you say, too much to keep up with? Well, yeah, there's some repairs that need done. I just don't really have time or the resources to get them done. And I just want to get into maintenance-free living. And so you hit them again. Yeah, that makes sense. Seems like you're craving something a little simpler. When you say the resources, what exactly do you mean by that? And they say, well, I don't really have the money. My wife used to make all the income for us, and now I'm struggling to even pay my bills. And if I don't sell quickly, to be honest, I'm going to be in some financial trouble. So I just need to sell and get out quickly. And the thing is, you just keep going until there is no more amorphous language, right? And so, for example, in this case, quote, financial trouble could mean many things. And so you're going to clarify that. But the specific, well, when you say blank, what do you mean, is so powerful because it gives us the opportunity to, the equivalent of clearing snow off our windshield, right? If we're driving and there's snow in our windshield and we can't see where we're going, that's clearly a problem. But the problem is most salespeople don't define what this amorphous language means. And as a result, they go down this entire sales conversation and they get to the end and they get lost or they have no idea where they are. And so you've used this phrase to help define what all the generic words mean. And you've done a nice job getting clear on what the actual problem is. But do you clearly understand what the impact of these problems is, right? So in this example, we started with the seller needing to downsize. Then we got into maintenance issues. Then we got into financial issues. But what's the actual impact of all of those issues? Well, we don't actually know yet. We have done a nice job getting further and further, so we're a few layers deep here, but we still don't know what does it mean to this specific seller. And so what we do next is we go figure that out. And so we say, got it, Mr. Seller. It seems like you've been through a lot lately. Out of curiosity, what would be the impact of not selling in the next 30 days? And the seller says, well, if that happens, to be transparent with you, I'm going to run out of money and I won't be able to pay the mortgage. And I don't want to get to that point. Oh man. Wow, Mr. Seller. And what would happen if you couldn't pay the mortgage? Well, I could lose the house. And after the divorce, that's all I have. So I can't let that happen. That's all you have? Yeah, like I said, my wife was the breadwinner. I got the house. She took everything else. And I don't know what I'd do if I lost the house. And so now the conversation that started with, well, my house is just too much for me, is a home that might go into foreclosure if it doesn't sell in the next 30 days. You've brought all of the pain to the surface. You have clarity on what the problems are and what the impacts to those problems are. And as a result, you're going to be able to present a solution that is more impactful to that seller. And what's great, this works in the other direction too. So for example, say a seller calls and, hey, what would be the impact if you didn't sell it quick to an investor? And they say, well, actually, that wouldn't really be that big of a deal at all. Oh, it wouldn't? Well, why would you sell to an investor then? Well, if I can net the same amount, but not having to go through a realtor, I would rather do that. And then boom, you instantly know that your solutions won't solve their problems and you can pursue a different solution for them. You don't have to go down the road of a big sales process. And so using these two tactics can help you truly understand why someone came to you and can help you understand the impact to their problems. It can help bring all of their pain to the surface, which, the definition of motivation is the deprivation between where they currently are and where they want to be. And so when you're doing this, when you're bringing the pain to the surface, you're not manufacturing it. You're not creating pain out of nowhere. The pain is there. You're just bringing it to the surface, which is going to help the prospect be more aware of the pain that they're in, and it's going to help them realize how far they are from where they want to be. That way, when you present what you can do, when you present your solution and how you can get them exactly to where it is that they want to go, just the thought of getting there is going to feel like a huge sigh of relief, and it'll help them be motivated to take action. So those first two tactics are really there to help uncover true motivation, help bring the pain to the surface so that when the pain is at its highest level, you can present your solution to them. And because their pain is high, they'll be motivated to act. So this third tactic is when you get all the way through your sales process and you're ready to present an offer. And you did a nice job in your sales process of getting what it was that they wanted for the house. And you do your underwriting and you figure out that the absolute max you can pay is literally the bottom line of what they would take. In this scenario, it can be challenging because the last thing you want to do is build trust with them in the discovery conversation in the beginning. You earn their trust, and so they tell you what it is that they want for the house, and then you handle it so well that you get the absolute lowest that they'll go. And then if you just blindly bring them an offer that matches the lowest that they're going to go, it's very likely they're going to be thinking at that point that they made a mistake and they never should have gave you what their bottom line was to begin with. And if at any point in the conversation you break their trust or they perceive you to not be trustworthy, it's going to decrease the likelihood that you get a deal. So how you avoid this is you frame the offer appropriately. And here is that frame. And so you're going to present the offer. Here's what you say. Mr. Seller, I want to start by saying that I'm uncomfortable. And these conversations, especially as we get into money, they just make me uneasy. And so I want to give you the context behind what I'm about to tell you. Because without the context, I fear you're going to think I'm literally the worst real estate investor that exists. And I would prefer for that not to happen. Look, I took the team the $200K that you asked for. And I told them, look, we need to solve X problem because of Y reason, et cetera, et cetera. And the team did their thing. They pulled comparable sales in the area. They ran their numbers. And when they told me initially what the property qualified for, they gave me a number that was below your bottom line of 160. And I said, look, there's absolutely no way she's going to take that. She wanted 200, and that's actually below her bottom line. And so, she's not going to do that. And if we want to help her, if we want this deal, if we want to help, solve XYZ problem, help her get to her next phase, the absolute lowest that she's going to take is 160. And I told them that, and they pushed back really hard on it. We analyzed the property probably for another 15 to 20 minutes. We looked at more comparable sales. And after lots of back and forth, and I almost wasn't able to do this, but I got them to come to 160. And so I wanted to give you that context versus just come to you with an offer at 160. And I felt it was important that context was well understood. And so I just talked a lot. I'm going to stop talking now and be silent. What feedback do you have? Right. So by giving them all of that context, if their bottom line is truly the absolute highest you can pay, everything that you just said is absolutely accurate. So whether you're running those numbers yourself, whether you're with your team and you are underwriting together, if their bottom is your max, the initial figure that you would like to get that deal for is going to be lower than their bottom. And by telling them that, by giving them that context behind the reason for their bottom line number, you're letting them know that you fought for them. You're letting them know that you're doing the best that you can, and they're going to appreciate the effort that you made to at least get to where they wanted to be, even if it was the bottom. Versus imagine the alternative if you just came to the table with an offer without that context, with their bottom line. They're just going to think that you conned them into trusting you in the beginning, They laid their cards on the table. And now because you know what their cards are, you can maximize your profits. And you're a greedy real estate investor. Right? So that is how you can frame your offer if, again, your max offer is the lowest of what it is that they'll take, or at least that's what they communicate. And that's how you ensure that the seller knows that you have their back, you're trying your best, and you're going to fight for them to help get what it is that they want. This fourth tactic, and maybe this one is a little bit more of a principle or a mindset going into the sales conversation, but it's about leverage. And you get the most leverage when your next best alternative to buying their house is doing absolutely nothing. In other words, not buying their house. And so if you go into a call and you make the offer, and you know when you make the offer that you don't need their house, you're just going to communicate to them entirely differently than if you go into the conversation thinking, okay, it's been a while since I've gotten a deal. We've been in a slump. I really need this deal so badly. And look, even if you need the deal, you gain nothing by repeating to yourself over and over how badly that you need it. And in fact, you're just giving yourself up in negotiation. You are going to come across differently than if you did not have that mindset. And so keep the frame in every conversation that you're having with the prospect that you are completely fine if you don't buy the house. Because one, you're not going to die. You will be fine if you don't buy the house, no matter where you are. But to take this even a step further, I will actually tell the prospect, right? I will say, hey, Mr. Seller, look, it doesn't bother me if you sell the house to me or not. I'm not here to convince you to sell your house to me. I'm here to give you all of the information you need so that you can make a good, confident decision. And my desired outcome is that by the end of your time with me, you feel crystal clear on what the next steps are for you, and you can effectively and confidently move in a direction that's going to fit you. And I've actually had sellers, after I tell them that, I've had them say, wow, that's really cool, thank you, or that's relieving, or I've gotten even a physical. I've observed in their physical body language, it's almost like they feel relief because they know they're not entering into this high pressure sales situation. And so if they know and they believe that it's no big deal if you don't buy their house, then they're going to be a lot less guarded in the conversation, and they're going to be a lot more willing to have an open conversation with you. So be comfortable with your next best alternative. You don't need to buy the house. Have that mindset, and you're going to have better conversations with your sellers. The last and final tactic is what I'm going to call taking your buying cap off. And so I actually got this from a good friend of mine, and we were talking about this last week. So if you get to the point in a conversation and you have made your offer and the prospect tells you, well, I have a higher offer, and it's higher than what you're comfortable paying. And especially if you know that there's a very high probability that that higher offer is likely some wholesaler who has no intention of buying the house. What you can say is this: okay, Mr. Seller, it seems like you made your decision here, and my offer is a no, which is totally fine. I want to take my buying cap off now, because now my job is to protect you. And what you're going to want to do to ensure that you're protected is you're going to go to that higher offer and you're going to say, okay, I'm interested in your offer. I need a $10,000 non-refundable deposit. I need you to remove the inspection period. And I need you to put a clause in the contract that says after you go in the house, nobody else is allowed to come in afterwards. And Mr. Seller, if you go to them and they agree to those things and they adjust their contract and sign the contract with that verbiage, I will high five you all the way to the bank. I want you to make more money. It would make me excited if you can make more money. And if they agree to those things and they close with that much more money, we'll be celebrating that together. But what you're also going to do is you're going to make sure that you have your own attorney counsel, and they'll tell you that they have their own attorney. I'm telling you, you're going to get your own attorney counsel who can review the agreement with you and have your back the entire way. And in fact, I can even give you one of my real estate attorneys, and you know what? I won't even, it'll be no charge to you. You can have that attorney counsel at no charge to you, and that way you're protected all the way through to closing. And so what I like so much about this frame is that when you do take your buying cap off and you give them those tips, they're going to know that you have their best interest in mind. And sure, there's nothing that you tell them to go, say to the other higher offer that you're not willing to do, right? And so if you advise them and you say, hey, go to them and say, hey, I want a $10K non-refundable deposit, and they go to that company and that company inevitably says, no, I'm not going to do that, and they come back to you and now want you to buy their house, we'll be willing to do what you suggested, right? So don't say things that you yourself won't commit to. But guess what? If you can put 10K down, non-refundable, and that other, quote, higher offer can't, then heck yeah, you just got yourself another deal and you protected the seller from going down this rabbit hole of what was likely to be a 30-day from now big price reduction. And I think this tactic goes really well with the previous tactic of being okay with your next best alternative, being comfortable if you don't buy the house. Because again, if you truly have the client's best interest in mind and they want to pursue this, quote, higher offer, then just tell them how to protect themselves. And when you remove your desire to buy their house and you just give them genuine advice that's going to help them, you're going to build even deeper trust with them. And look, after all of that, if you tell them that and they still go with the higher offer and they don't do what you suggested, at that point, is that a client that you want to work with anyways? And so these are the 5 things that my team and I talked about this week. I thought they were really good. I wanted to summarize them here for you, and they helped us lock up 3 deals last week. And I think if you use them, it'll better help you and your prospects. And so to recap, tactic 1, ask, quote, when you say blank, what do you mean? 2, ask impact questions. 3, if your max offer is their bottom line, frame it appropriately. 4, be okay not buying the house. And 5, take your buying cap off. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. And I really appreciate all of you sharing this podcast. The podcast continues to grow. And really, the only reason that it's growing is because of you. And if you can share this with a friend, if you got some value out of this specific episode, send it to a realtor, a wholesaler, someone that is working a direct seller business. Might help them close some more deals, help more sellers, and maybe they'll find some value out of it. But it would mean the world to me if you shared it. So thank you so much, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.